All right, it is 7:05, so we can kick it off. People will kind of join in as we progress through the webinar. But thank you all for joining. Um, we have Deborah from Capgemini, a software engineer or data engineer. I'm not gonna lie, Deborah, I didn't know how to introduce you because I saw data engineer on LinkedIn, but then I saw software engineer, so I wasn't really sure. So which one do you prefer?
I prefer, that's an interesting question. I prefer data engineer.
Okay then.
Interesting because I was hired as a software engineer for the project I'm working on is data
Data.
related.
Okay, yeah, we can probably like delve into that and like what are the differences and stuff as we kind of progress. But yeah, we have Deborah here from Capgemini who's been kind enough to share some of her time this evening to talk through how to get an in-demand job in tech. As we know, software engineering is a very in-demand job in tech, and she can kind of delve into some of the other roles as well that are kind of in demand and the skill sets required to navigate getting into the industry. And I think this one is quite unique as well because Deborah, you didn't really study anything relating to tech in uni as well, right? So
No, I didn't study anything like completely finance related, economic.
yeah, yeah. So this will be kind of a good one for people, especially I know that there might be a few people here who may not necessarily have like a tech background and are looking to kind of like break into it. So this will be very relevant for you as well. And yeah, before we kind of get into it, just a shameless plug. We are Beyond Education. Most of you may not be members. You may have signed up via different platforms and stuff, but Beyond Education is just a platform dedicated to helping individuals access early career opportunities at corporate institutions, corporate being tech, finance, and professional services. So that's really like the sectors that we focus on, and we do this by providing free career resources on our website, career content across TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We have professional insights from professionals like Deborah. We do webinars, and then from time to time we do one-to-one support with people who reach out to us via email. So that's Beyond Education in a nutshell. And with that being said, you guys can sign up to our website so you can get the drop and all the upcoming webinars and access all the resources that we have as well. So I'll just drop that in the chat. Um, so you guys can sign up to that and you can follow us on socials as well. And yeah, with that being said, I will pass it on to Deborah to introduce herself and talk through the presentation.
Okay, so hi everyone. As you guys already know, my name is Deborah. I'm a software data engineer, let's just say, specialized in data, of course. And I have knowledge in various coding languages, as stated, like Python, Oracle, SQL, MySQL, and Unix. And I'm also training, doing like certifications in data integration under Talent and things like that. I also do content creation, like UCG creation, and a little bit of like pictures on Instagram influencing, when I have time. And I have a YouTube channel as well where I just like kind of throw out basically my passion for working in tech and helping other people because I really do enjoy helping others like make their lives easier. I also run a tech coaching business, and that is a funny story. It kind of went about with my whole YouTube, where people were just emailing me like an influx of people saying, "Oh my gosh, be my mentor," and things like that. So I decided to just create a business essentially and help them or help people with graduates, even people who are already in their careers. Like I helped someone else doing nursing transition or just get into tech because it can be hard. And yeah, I graduated from University of East Anglia. As you guys know already, that it was not even tech related, it was business economics, completely hardcore finance, corporate finance, all that stuff. I did want to get into finance, but tech just drew me as I did have an interest in business analytics. So yeah, that's the next slide.
No problem, man.
So the agenda for today is understanding technical and non-technical tech jobs, transferable skills, because transferable skills can be found in any type of job role you have, the importance of coding, and also how important it is just to use your transferable skills and not actually dwell on your lack of coding skills per se. Also, we're going to talk about networking in tech as well, and of course, any questions at the end as well. Next.
Perfect.
So first one is technical and non-technical. So for instance, a non-technical role is basically a business analyst and a scrum master. A lot of people may kind of misunderstand that a business analyst is very technical, but there are actually different variations of business analytical roles. it can be very much so non-technical and technical in a sense where you could just be working with a lot of people, analyzing the business model and trying to help them kind of get a better trajectory of their business. So it can be very much so kind of being a people's person and being very much so talking and integrating into other people. And a Scrum Master is pretty much similar. You're kind of managing projects. I know for a particular project I'm on, I have one Scrum Master that is managing like 30 people in our project. So you also need to be a people's person and be someone who can be able to talk and be integrated and things like that. So that's very non-technical. So you can see a picture there is like people who are like leading a team on a couch and stuff like that. That's very tech type of picture because people are just very casually dressed and stuff. And that's literally how it would be in real life. So a very technical role is a software engineer. Software engineering is not a joke. Like I can say that for first hand. You have to understand coding. Like you have to understand at least some element of Excel. Excel is very, very important. Like if you don't have Excel in your CV, just slap it on there and do a quick Udemy course because it's very necessary for you to understand Excel. Very popular ones like R, Python and SQL. Those are very technical coding languages that are very popular with many companies that would basically like grab you off the job market the moment they see those coding languages on your CV. And data analytics is very technical because you're obviously analyzing large sets of data and simplifying it in a way where someone who doesn't have knowledge in data would understand. So you're basically like analyzing the data on like how, I don't know, the GDP of the economy has increased. And you're kind of just simplifying it in a way where a child can understand. That's what data analytics is. And going on to what I do in terms of data engineering, specifically on the project I'm on, it's basically sourcing raw data and then creating, putting it into data pipelines for a data analyst to analyze. So I'm engineering that data and sorting it out into different locations. So I'll give you an example later on, but yeah. So you need to understand which type of tech role you want, whether it's non-technical or technical, because that's how the best way you know if you want to get into tech, because non-technical roles and technical roles are very, very much so different. I need to understand it in terms of your personality. Are you an introvert, an extrovert? Maybe an extrovert will go with more Scrum Master because you have to be a people's person. An introvert maybe would prefer software engineering, data engineering, because it's pretty much like in your room coding all day and doing things like that.
So that's what I was gonna kind of ask Deborah, right? So with these technical roles, I appreciate that, what I kind of hear is that, yeah, as a software engineer, you're just sitting down on your desk and you're just coding. But when you have to like, maybe present insights on the data that you've kind of crunched and, do you have to like speak to a team about it? Do you have to present it to people? Or is it a thing where you just crunch the data, type up your insights and then just send it off? How does that kind of work?
The way it kind of works is like you would basically be working with a team of engineers and you'll be just communicating with them on a daily stand-up. And that's pretty much the only communication you'll have. And then usually if you're like just a general engineer, software engineer or data engineer, once your work is done, you give it to the leader and that's the team lead or the manager. That's the person who will communicate with the client per se. So there isn't pretty much any like interaction with anyone other than the people you need help with or your stand-up. It's pretty much what it is. With data engineering as well, you're basically doing one element of the bigger scope of sourcing the data. So you may not actually be speaking to someone like for a week or something.
I see. And then another thing I wanted to ask as well is that where would you say like someone that's kind of creative but wants to work in tech, where would you say they kind of fit in the picture in terms of technical and non-technical roles? Like what kind of role would be suitable for someone that's a creative?
If you're creative, I would say a UX UI design.
Okay.
That is very much so building, designing, creating software, and you have to use your creative mind, imagination on how to build, because the client can come to you and say, okay, I want this type of website and everything. You need to be able to design and formulate. Basically, so that's a little bit artistic in a way as well.
Okay.
I'll point straight to that, or even like people's person, even business analysts, they do create very colorful portfolios using data, like in terms of pivot tables, diagrams and stuff like that. So using your imagination to make it attractive to the person that doesn't necessarily understand data analytics. So
Okay, then fair enough. And what would you say, like, if you wanted to kind of make a decision of, okay, right, I want to work in tech, and we've kind of split it down technical, non-technical, what would you say are like some of the characteristics and skills that you need to possess in each of these buckets, right? So let's say we start with non-technical, for example, like, what kind of skill sets and characteristics would you need to have?
I think with the non-technical, you have to be very much so put yourself out there. Basically, you have to put yourself out there.
Mm,
Especially for example, your Scrum Master, you have to be able to um, communicate effectively because you're obviously managing a large number of people in a project. You also need to be able to reach out and be confident when things are going wrong. You need to be able to reach out to people. So be a bit confident.
hmm
Um, Not necessarily introverted because extroverted, but more so like just be a people's person and be able to like integrate with different personalities in the office. Because when you are in a project, you come across a lot of different personalities. I'm saying that from experience.
You sound like you've been through it.
Yeah. Yeah, you come across a lot of different personalities. You need to know how to adapt and accommodate different people
Mm.
and not take offense with different, opinions and things like that. So that's the type of person you need to, kind of create within yourself, basically.
All right, then no problem. I have a few more questions and stuff just to kind of like give people an idea and stuff, but we'll go to the next slide and maybe we can cover it off there.
So transferable skills and the importance of coding. So in terms of transferable skills, one example I would want to give that I've actually spoken about on my YouTube channel is anything can get you into tech. You just need to know how to kind of tailor your CV in the right way to what the employer actually wants. So for example, you only just worked in retail jobs like your whole life, you want to go into tech. You may instantly think, how would that be possible? Because you don't have any coding language skills, you don't have anything in terms of non-technical skills. But things like working with people on a day-to-day, as I said, with different personalities, you can tailor that and use that skill to transfer it into a tech role, like for example, a software support, a graduate business analyst, saying that you worked with different people, you were sorting out numericals in terms of accounting and taking payments of clothes in terms of retail and things like that. So there's different ways you can transfer your skills into tech and kind of be imaginative of what you actually have already and amplifying it. Not lying per se, but exaggerating the current skills you have to make it more pleasing to the ears of the employer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I said, just think about the previous role you've done, even work experience, volunteering, waitressing, even waitressing can get you into any type of job if you really tailor your CV in the right way. Um,
Yeah.
and making sure that when you do tailor it, you're not just vaguely saying it, but you're really directing it to the job description and what exactly the employer actually is thinking of. Okay, this is the right candidate for me to employ.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like sometimes they know, obviously they know that the skills that you have in waitressing like may not be necessarily applicable, but if you kind of finesse it in a way to make it seem like, okay, this skill set I have is somewhat relevant, they recognize the effort, right? And then
Yeah,
obviously they kind of take that potential from there. Because I think a lot of people think that employers, at least good employers anyways, they're not just hiring because of the hard skill set, they're hiring for potential. So if they see that there's some level of like transferable skills, then they'll take a chance, right?
yeah, and even when I was working with someone who was in the nursing industry, she had no tech experience. She did get a job as a data analyst, but she used her mathematical skills that she did within nursing, which you might think, how she did maths in nursing. But those small things that she did in terms of calculating, I don't know, the different things that you do in nursing. And I literally told her to just transfer those small things. And that's what she amplified on her CV. And then it helped her get into an entry-level data analyst role, but it still helped her get her foot in the door. So
Mhm.
it's just amplifying those small skills and just making it more pleasing in terms of when you're writing on your CV and making it look more, just adding sugar to it, basically. You're not making it dull, basically.
Yeah, no, fair
Yeah,
enough. And then if you
yeah,
kind of want to go into like a bit of like a more technical role, right, that requires some sort of like coding, how do you kind of go about like learning this skill set? And the reason why I'm asking is because like I don't know, like a lot of people kind of talk about coding as a skill that you need to have for the future. And I recently started doing like an introduction to computer science course, which kind of goes into like a bit of like Python and stuff. went over my head. It's just not for me. Don't like it. I'm not a fan. So like, how would you advise kind of going about that as someone that went from finance to working in tech?
I think the best way to go about that is looking at your educational skills that you have required. So everyone has studied maths. Everyone at some stage of their life has studied maths.
Hmm.
And coding is an element of mathematics, if you think about it. It's numbers to some degree, and it's letters as well, but it's mostly looking at numerical and how to analyze different things. Some coding languages anyway. So if you can analyze, if you're good at algebra, if you're good at different elements of maths, then you can literally put down your CV and say, I have my mathematical, statistical aspect of my educational background. So you can easily tailor that into being a good candidate for a software engineer. For instance, for me, I didn't have strong coding language skills to be a software engineer. But the way I did it is that I harnessed my economic skills or my math skills. And I basically said, okay, I may not have coding language skills, but I have math skills, I have statistical skills, econometric skills, and I know how to do algebra, I know how to do all these things, I know how to analyze large sets of data. So I can easily be trained to know how to code. So it's giving the employer the upper hand of, okay, she may not have the coding skills, but she has an open mind to learn how to code. So even if you want to get into software engineering, you don't have any coding language skills, you just need to think about what type of math skills do I have, and how can I amplify that on my CV, and how can I also put on my CV that I'm open to learning coding languages, because maths is an element of that,
Mm.
especially as we in economics.
Okay,
But
then noted. And then how did you, as like someone that didn't have any prior knowledge or experience in coding, what was your first step to kind of like start doing a bit of independent learning? Like, what languages were you learning? Like, what resources were you using? How did you start your journey into like learning how to code and stuff?
I started my journey by, I think YouTube was the first place, to be honest.
Mm.
Just kind of opened the door in my interest on what coding language should I actually learn, and the databases that I should actually look into. And then when I obviously found out that Coursera and Udemy are the type of places that you should go to where if you want to take a course. So that's why I took my first course in Python. Literally just I paid for it myself just to kind of open my mind on what exactly is coding. And this is when it was like way back when I had no understanding of what coding is, how it is. So I just took the course, finished it, and then after that I did writing on my CV just for an extra bit of understanding. But that was one of the main things that I did. And it helped me get my foot in the door. It didn't help me to be a software engineer, but it helped me get my foot in the door to get into tech basically. And then
Got
after I transitioned from my previous role into software engineering.
Noted, noted. And someone asked, like, what about SQL? Like, how does that kind of play a role into like getting into a technical role? I presume that's what they were asking.
SQL is kind of hard to learn in terms of learning it before you get into a role. It's probably best to start with MySQL because that's the actual coding language. And then I think SQL is a database that holds MySQL. And then kind of after that, when you put MySQL on your CV, you can say I'm open to learning SQL, or even start learning it on Udemy, like the basics of it.
Mm,
Because these type of coding languages is better for you to learn and get a certification within an organization where they can teach you the depths of it. But it is very important. It's just that it's best to learn the basics of it, kind of amplify on your CV and then let the company,
mm.
pay.
And then another question I kind of had as well is that, a lot of these like technicalities, like, coding and stuff, it's really abstract unless like you're applying it to something. So how do you kind of deal with that? Like, you're just learning this coding language and like because you don't have any experience like in a day-to-day job, it's kind of like you're learning it. How do you go about like, really putting it into practice? Because that's the best way to learn, I
Yes.
presume.
That's actually a good question because I think when you learn a coding language, it's hard because how do you test yourself? And the way I did it when I was doing it before I got my job is literally I found online tests to kind of test my knowledge, to kind of
Mm,
strengthen what I already knew. And also I try to teach others because I always say like the best way to learn something is to learn it to a point where you can teach someone else. So
mm,
strong understanding on like what you've actually taught yourself. So when I say that is, for example, if you're learning Python, if you're learning SQL or R, whichever one it is, learn it to a point where you're very comfortable, and then try and maybe teach someone else, teach your brother, your friend, or whoever, and try and make yourself more very comfortable with it, or find an online test where you'll kind of like make yourself familiar with it. Because that's what I did. I just found an online test in terms of Udemy and things like that. And that helped me kind of understand how to do it, like to go about it, because testing yourself with all these certifications you will learn in the future, you'll have
Mhm.
exams within it. So it's better to practice now before you get those certifications, because yeah, it's quite intense.
Heavy. Okay then. And on your last point, in terms of like, the best coding language to learn, I know you said it kind of depends, right? So if you could probably like elaborate on that a bit more.
The best coding languages to learn, it's kind of hard to pinpoint which ones. I would say it actually depends. I would say if you want to be a data engineer, software engineer, data integration is very important. Um, it's not coding language, but it's just to understand the concept of data engineering or data. SQL is very popular and in demand. Python, sorry, Python is very, very popular as well. R as well, and one I almost forgot. Java is also a very big one as well, but definitely don't try and learn all of them. Pick one particular one, and then obviously, as I said, strengthen your knowledge in it and figure out what type of software engineer you're going to be. A Java software engineer? Do you want to be a Python software engineer, developer? Like, because there's specific software engineers for different coding languages. You don't want to just learn 100 and then you'll be very, yeah. Python and R are very great for machine learning models. It's true. If you want to get into machine learning, definitely learn those two.
Mm,
Very.
okay. And if you want to like, looking at like entry level roles from a technical standpoint, data analyst always seems to come up a lot, right? So,
Yeah.
do you need to learn like, a coding language to be a data analyst, or what would you say you need to kind of have, like what skill set would you need to possess for that kind of role?
With data analysts, you don't need coding skills. I think that would be a bit extra if you try to get coding skills. You just need to actually understand how to analyze large sets of data,
Mm,
simplify it in a way where someone doesn't understand, like someone who, for example, someone doesn't have GCSEs will be able to understand what you just analyzed, and
mm,
they will be able to get it and then relate back to you. Um, Also, if you want to get into data analytics, some of them are so different that you need to look at the job description. I always say this with my clients, look at the job description, because each data analysts are so different to one another. One could be asking for coding languages, the others could be asking for maths and GCSE, because they'll train you if it's entry level. So
mm. Would you say like that's like kind of like data analyst and data scientist then in that respect? Would you say a data scientist is a lot more technical, or like, what's the main difference there?
data scientist is a lot more technical. The data scientist is like the senior data analyst. The data analyst is, it's not entry level, but it's more so like you can't get entry level data scientists. Sometimes you can, but it's one of those things where you have to progress into it.
Mm-hmm.
One of those hierarchy data scientist roles where you learn a large set, you understand very complex data in terms of tens of thousands plus of raw data, and you're able to really simplify it and get a specific type of, I don't know, outcome or something, but it's very different.
Got you, got you. Okay, then moving on to the next slide. The importance of networking then in tech.
Yeah, someone asked a question about data science required. Yeah, that's actually true.
So what, in my experience, data science requires an intuitive understanding of statistics, or else concepts like logic regression, PCA will be difficult. Do you want to elaborate on that then?
Yeah, as I said, if you want to get into data science, because it's like a higher level of like analytics, statistics and econometrics and things like that is would be very necessary, because you need to understand like a high level of regression, as you've mentioned, like SPSS. You can learn SPSS. That's something I even forgot to mention. SPSS is very, very good if you want to get into data science or data analytics, because it's something that you can easily sort data out within that, and it's basically function for data analysts.
So could we kind of like do a bit of like jargon buster? So could we like, explain like what regression is in simple terms and like what SPSS is?
So SPSS is from my uni days. understanding. But SPSS is basically like a statistical regression system that basically helps you, in basically simple terms, it basically helps you get raw data and just sort it out, basically. That is the most simplest way I can explain it.
Mm.
Basically helps you simplify large sets of data. So it's a statistical system that helps you analyze large sets of data in a very simple way. But if you type in SPSS, it's one of those, I think Stata is now used as opposed to SPSS, and Stata is the same thing, but more highly ranked. And it's one of those statistical language forms of coding that you need to learn. Is a system as opposed to coding. So it's a system that you need to learn because it helps you analyze large sets of data, like numerical data, or it can be English data or whatever. But yeah.
Got you, got you. And moving on to the slide, just about the importance of networking, especially like when you're trying to like break into tech, like right, like how do you kind of go about that?
So networking is very important. I think the thing with networking, I think when you're starting off, which is something that I wish I had done, is definitely going to different open networking events in London, outside London, wherever you can, to meet people who are in your field. I would say networking, even the best way to get into a field that you want is on LinkedIn. Utilize the power of LinkedIn. This is something I wish I had done. Maybe like follow people who are already data analysts, data scientists, and not only just like follow them, also message them, ask them for advice and understanding how to basically be like, what kind of route should I take to be a data scientist, data analyst, software engineer? Because when you do link with these people on LinkedIn, some of them are very, very open to have a communication with you. Sometimes they can even be your references. I know that's how one of my friends actually got into a tech company. She messaged someone random on LinkedIn and they wanted to be her reference. So networking with people and putting yourself out there with events as well can really help you get your foot in the door. And it can be the difference between you applying for 1,000 jobs and linking with that one senior member of a tech company and them offering you a job, or them like being your reference and you getting a job like that. So
Yeah, and I think I always say as well, like, networking, when you're trying to like use networking to get a job, right? It's not necessarily about getting a job, it's about gaining information, right? And that
yeah,
information is what you then use. Because as we understand, tech is very, very broad, right? And there's so many different aspects to it. And as someone that's maybe trying to break into it or trying to transition into it, you're at a disadvantage because you don't have any knowledge or prior
yeah,
insight, right? So you networking with people is ultimately to build up your information bank in order for you to gain more knowledge on some of these roles. And then you then sit down, look at that knowledge, and then be like, okay, cool. Based on what this person has said, I actually like, it sounds like that role is a lot more interesting to me and it's more in line with my skill set. So, with that being said, that's very much what I'm going to kind of use in order to like get into another role. So I think sometimes a lot of people think it's just no network so I can get the job, but it's network so I can get information, and then that
yeah.
information I'll use to get the job basically. So that's what I'd kind of say about that. Someone said, is it regular to switch jobs often in tech, even in a short amount of time? So I don't know. When I see on TikTok, it seems like everybody in tech is switching jobs like every two
Yeah.
seconds. So I don't know, like, Deborah, maybe you want to shed some light on that, because I feel like tech is the one place
Yeah.
where everyone's always encouraging job hopping because apparently that's the only way to make a lot more money. So yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of like, maybe shed some light on that, or maybe do some mythbusters on that. But yeah.
I think if you have a salary goal, job hopping is probably the best way to do that. Like, I know someone that wanted to get to six figures by the time they were 26, and because they job hopped every 3 months, they did that.
3 months.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I have a lot of stories like that. Even my brother was telling me how someone joined his company and then 3 months later he just, dipped and went to another company and he got a higher paying salary. So that in tech it can actually be possible to do that because
and
the
and
three
and
months.
and the companies, they're kind of aware that this is like common, like they're not even fussed too tough, no.
Yeah, you know what it is because when you join a job role, they usually give you like they put you through certifications quite quickly. Like
Mm,
first month, you're already studying, doing an exam for, I don't know, a certification. The moment you get that certification, most people bounce. Most people
really?
like
No
it's not.
way.
I wouldn't encourage 3 months. I wouldn't even encourage 6 months. I would say get
Mm,
a tangible amount of experience.
Okay.
Where yeah, where it's like is you look a bit reputable. Like when people look back in your history, you're like, okay, you seem like someone that will stick around for a good amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you may have a goal to get to a salary point, but sometimes being in a company that is good for your satisfaction, you can miss that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And then another thing I wanted you to kind of shed light on as well is that, when I'm looking on TikTok, mainly TikTok, honestly, these Americans seem to be getting paid way much more money than
so
like
much
what's
money.
happening in the UK. I see like Americans talking about making six figures, and this will be someone that's like just come out of uni, software engineer. So I don't know if you can be a bit transparent in terms of like, what's the pay range like here for like, the average software engineer or like technical person versus non-technical person in the UK in comparison to the US, just so it can kind of give us a bit of a benchmark in terms of what we should be aiming for, because I feel like a lot of our expectations are kind of like sometimes skewed based on like what we see on TikTok and what a lot of people say, right? So yeah.
I would say, aside from the US, like if you were a graduate and you had like software engineering experience, you would leave with a tech job of like six figures maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas in the UK, you had software engineering experience, software engineer job, would probably maybe get like, I don't know, a graduate job of like 30 to 60K, but that depends on obviously what kind of company, whether it's a fintech or if it's a technology company. Also, if you have no technical experience and you want to get into software engineering, the graduate level is probably starting at 35 onward.
Mm,
But if you do have experience, like maybe 2, 3 years, like myself, it could go up to 80 plus. It goes up to high levels. So
mm,
between 60 to 80, I would say, because it depends on whether it's fintech, as I said, or complete technical. However, the company is a consulting tech company or just a full-blown software tech. So it actually, or internet. So it depends on
so
what
there's
type.
so many different variables and different
Yeah,
factors. But would you say like base level is maybe like looking at like that 30 to 35 if you're just like an
you're
entry
just
level
fine.
person?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because any tech job entry level, it doesn't really go below 30. And if it does, I wouldn't advise you to take it
Mm,
because there's so many different kinds of tech roles that are offering. I know for a lot of people that I know in terms of tech, some of them started on 60K plus, like
wow.
started. And that's obviously maybe that's because it was a startup, and startups usually do pay like really well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm even saying wow, but we recently actually helped someone get a data analyst role at Bloomberg, right? And the starting salary was 50K. So like, and that was like it's even like a development program. So it wasn't even like they expect that much from her. It's kind of like, we're going to teach you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think tech is definitely something that is even looking interesting to me. Like let's just say
No,
that.
honestly,
Yeah.
oh, you're welcome. Like honestly, by now, this is private. Welcome.
Nah, another thing I wanted to kind of ask as well then is that a lot of people on TikTok always emphasize this whole it's easy to get into tech, break into tech in 9 days. I was wondering if you'd be able to shed a bit of light into like, your interview process going from when you were a software tester to when you actually went into a more technical role as a software engineer and like, really delve into like, the ins and outs of it and what that was like basically. And, maybe in your honest opinion, what the difficulty was like.
Honestly, for me, it wasn't difficult at all
Cool. What?
because
What your
I think
shit?
no, it's honestly I think because for me, I transitioned within my company, so it was easier than if someone came from another company. But if the only difficult thing for me, I did have an interview and they just told me, okay, like what coding language do you know? Are you open to learning more and things like that, X, Y, Z. But usually, if you were to come out of software testing and then come back in as a software engineer, you would probably go through like, I don't know, a 5-stage screening program or whatever. Maybe interview first, then do a few coding tests, because I've done a coding test in the past before. As an
Mm.
and those tests are very hard. Like they're not easy. You have to study properly. And also you'll have to do a presentation sometimes.
Hmm.
Presentation on if you're a team player, teamwork, which is funny because most tech jobs you don't actually work in a team per se, is
Yeah,
what
so
you
that's what I was gonna ask. For someone like a software engineer, like, is that like kind of difficult if you're like just like really introverted all the time kind of thing? Like,
yeah, I mean, the thing is, they would want to see that you have team spirit as opposed to working a team. So it's easy to show team spirit when you can, obviously, if someone is being quiet, it's easy for you to be like, okay, like, do you have anything to say? Things like that to increase. And it is very, very hard to, as an
Mm.
introvert, to obviously show that. But you have to, as I said in the past, like put yourself out there. Because any job you have to really show that you're willing to put yourself out there and be a bit open to anything. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Got you. And
In terms of question.
just to kind of summarize before we get into like more questions and stuff, like what would you say are kind of like the key takeaways if you're like someone that's like maybe beginner level trying to break into tech or trying to transition from another industry into tech, then basically what would you say are like the key points that you kind of need to, take into consideration when trying to do this?
I think the key takeaways is knowing yourself and what type of role would you actually want. Is it technical or non-technical? I think that is the first thing you need to think about. Um, are you going to be someone who's going to be out there, or are you going to be someone that would prefer to work from home, remote, or working from all those things you have to actually consider if you want to get into tech, because there are different variations of types of roles, and you
Mm,
need to know what would suit you specifically.
mm,
And knowing whether it's non-technical or technical is the first starting point. And also from that point, if you know it's technical or non-technical, what type of coding language you want to learn, and what skills you want to strengthen to actually show a potential employer that you actually have strength in this. For example, if you want to learn a coding language, if it's SQL, specifically learn that, strengthen your knowledge on that, and then push yourself as an SQL developer.
yeah.
So you,
For roles in that basically.
yeah, so you like you're tailoring yourself in a specific way, so it's not making your life harder in
Mm.
terms of finding a job. Um, that's what I would say in particular. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Got you. So basically identify like, whether it's non-technical or technical,
Yeah,
identify like your personality and like characteristic and skill sets that you have basically and like narrow it down to like a specific role and then
yeah,
basically learn like the skills for that specific role and then
yeah.
like tailor your job search to those roles basically, right? Yeah, and
I would
then
definitely say
also
that.
yeah, and then network as well as we kind of
Yeah,
said.
network is very important.
We got you. So we're gonna open up to Q&A now. Someone said, how would you prepare for the coding test?
I'll just say practice. Practice.
Mm,
Like usually, for example, you have a job interview and they say, okay, coding test is going to be there. Try and find out what type of test would be,
mm,
languages you'll learn within it, and then try and learn and practice it over and over again. Because coding tests doesn't usually differ from the last one. They usually are the same because they're so hard. Um, and sometimes they can be, you have to maybe decode some things. Like I remember when I had a test, I had to decode like X, Y, and then I or something. I don't know how they expected anybody to know what, what that was,
mm.
because yeah. But you have to just kind of broaden your mind and really practice a lot. That's what I can say, because there's no particular way to go about it.
Got
What
you.
are questions?
So someone said, what are the implications of tech apprenticeships? I don't know if you have any view on tech apprenticeships. I know like that's something that's like really emerging a lot at the moment. And actually like with Beyond Education, we've kind of been speaking to employers and they're looking to like kind of like roll out apprenticeships with us as well. So yeah, it would be interesting if you have any views on that.
I think they're very good. I think doing an apprenticeship as opposed to going to university is probably a bit better. I see that there's actually more of a better route with that, because you're getting paid understanding and you're understanding obviously how to be more skilled in that job, especially if it's, for example, software engineering. And apprenticeships are even easier to get into the tech industry than if you were to do a degree and then try and look for a job, because you,
Mm.
I think is, if you have the opportunity to do an apprenticeship, I would go for it.
And then that was kind of like a three-part question. So they said, do you think apprenticeships are people that do apprenticeships are more attractive to employers than university students who just have a few internships under their name?
If they have internships, then it's a bit of an that's an interesting question, because if it's a graduate that has no experience, then that's not even comparable to someone who has experience as an apprentice.
Mm,
But if it is a graduate that has internship experience in the right industry, then yeah, it's still the same level of like, attraction or appeal to the
yeah,
employer.
that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say it kind of sounds equal to
Yeah,
like, but then I don't know. I feel like one could pose the argument that the apprenticeship, because they've been integrated into one business, they probably have like more in-depth experience as opposed to someone that's kind of just done internships in a short period of time. Because I don't know, I'm just thinking like how much can you actually learn from like, a quick 8 week summer internship? You know what I mean? Like a consecutive 8 week summer internship. I don't know, like that's just my thoughts.
Think what's interesting, there's disadvantages and advantages to that with an
Mhm.
apprentice, because with the advantage of an apprentice is that you're learning specifically in that role, you have experience, very tangible experience for a long period of time. But what the disadvantage is that they're training you in the skills of their company, so you're
Mhm.
going to be very specialized in the culture and coding language or whatever in that company. So
Mhm.
there's a disadvantage is if you wanted to transition to a new company, it'll be hard to transition, whereas with a graduate, I guess there's a bit more open mind that they're fresh, out of the boat. They have that 8 weeks, knowledge of an internship that is probably gone to the back of their mind. So I
Mm.
guess it's like a pick or choose which one is best for you. But ultimately, I would definitely say apprenticeship is just more of a wiser choice sort of thing,
Yeah,
especially.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think to be honest, like thinking about it, like, right, just going back in time, I definitely think apprenticeships is where it's at, just purely because you're kind of guaranteed a job, first of all,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
guaranteed that
I
experience
agree.
hands on. And I think one thing that we've kind of noticed just working is that a lot of the stuff you do in uni just is not even relevant to what you actually do like in the working world. Like as someone that's worked in finance for 4 years, everything I studied banking and finance, like barely half of the stuff that I studied in uni is really relevant, right?
Yeah,
I think from that perspective, like, like apprenticeships is really on the rise at the moment. But just in terms of like whether it's attractive to employers, I think it's just down to the employer and what they're on and what their
yeah.
criteria is. So I think that's really where it is. Someone said if you don't have qualifications for programming slash technical roles, does making your own projects help you, even if you do not have certifications or a computer science degree? Because they have a degree in finance. Hi Pratip, I actually remember you because we actually spoke. So yeah.
When you say making your own projects, do you mean
So like,
as
so like maybe like making a project on GitHub or something. So I know like for example,
okay?
the candidate that we helped get a job in Bloomberg, like what she actually did, right, was she basically did like some like she used Power BI to kind of do some like data visualization on I think like countries and like populations or something like that. It was like a really specific project. And what she actually did is she did it on GitHub, and then in her cover letter she actually referenced it. So they could actually click it and see it, right? So I guess they're just kind of saying like, would making your own projects kind of like help you in that respect, basically. And I know from my perspective, like, that candidate, it really kind of helps them, but I don't know if you have any insight into that.
I think it would help, of course, that you have put yourself out there in terms of passionate about it. So you've gone out of your way outside of your own time to create, of course, that experience. But I think it would definitely help. Um, I don't really have much experience and understanding on it, so I don't know my
You don't want to, yeah, speak on it.
yeah
No, and that's fair. And I think because
yeah
I feel like it's easier said than done though, because I feel like a lot of people always kind of say this whole, yeah, just do personal projects. But me personally, like, right, throughout all my experience, right, and obviously even though I don't work in tech, I've never had to go out of my way to do some sort of like personal projects that have to get a job, right? I feel like personal projects is kind of like a last resort kind of thing, or
yeah
if you genuinely are just like doing some kind of project. So for example, with the candidate that did the data visualization thing, she was just doing that on some, I want to learn, I want to put my skills to use kind of thing, right? And then she was able to reference it and that helped her. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes, like, just learning the skill sets required and applying for the job and kind of relying on like the transferable skills you have from your experience will actually do the trick as well. So yeah.
the thing is, I think it's still a benefit. Like if like you want to do that, of course, it's going to be a huge benefit to you. And I feel like some employers would appreciate that and think, okay, wow, this is a candidate that has passion for this type of coding language that they've even gone out of their way to make a project and things like that. So obviously, yeah, it would be a benefit. But some employers may not even see it as a thing. They may just look specific to grades, specifically to certain things. So I
Mm,
guess it depends on because each employer is different.
yeah.
But that yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like it depends, but I think if you did want to do that, definitely do that because it can actually be different between you getting a job and someone else
Yeah,
not.
and someone else. No, that's fair. Someone said, "Oh wait, Latifa. I just seem to know everyone that's on this call today. But hey, Latifa, what transferable skills would you say someone that works in HR has, especially if they're trying to branch into a technical role? So I can answer this one first and then I'll pass it on to you, Deborah. But I feel like it kind of depends on like what you're doing in HR as well. So I know, for example, now like if you're someone that kind of like runs payroll a lot, right? You might be dealing with a lot of numbers, for example. So I think that's something that you can very much leverage and kind of finesse into like some of the technical roles. If you're someone that's like kind of like, I know like a lot of HR professionals kind of like, manage like how much the company spends on using agencies in comparison to like, how they recruit like personally in-house and stuff like that. So, you can kind of talk about how you manage like recruitment budgets and stuff like that as well. I feel like that's something that you can very much play on as well. And then lastly, I feel like, with HR, like, you're always managing headcounts of businesses. And again, like that's like numbers that you can very much like leverage into some of those technical roles. So yeah, that's kind of like
I
it
think
from my perspective.
what I'll add is that when I think about HR, their roles are very much so attention to detail. You have to place a lot of attention to detail. And that's something that is such an important skill if you want to transition into tech. For example, you said payroll. That's to do with numbers. Like you have to have an analytical mind and be very much so alert to be able to catch things out in terms of, because payroll is very much important to the company. And also doing headcount and things like that. So I think when you go specific on what type of skill that you're gaining from HR, then you can easily transition that into tech, because attention to detail is very important in tech,
Mhm.
especially if you're doing coding languages. Be very precise on how you're typing away and making sure that your code is not, because when you get a code wrong and then you do it again and again, it can be frustrating. So you need to have very much so open mind and attention to detail, which is what comes to mind when I think about a HR role. So,
Noted, noted. Antoine asked, also, could you by any chance give a good example of a tech CV? That's a very good question. And if you sign up to the Beyond Education website, quick pluggy, we actually have something called the Career Suite. And on the Career Suite, it's a repository of just various CVs from different industry professionals. And we have a bunch of like tech ones as well. And that seems to like be the best selling one. And we're going to bully Deborah to also upload some materials as well and upload some CVs and cover letters that she's used to get jobs as well. So if you sign up to the website and go to the members portal, you should be able to access that, and a bunch of other resources as well. Like, if you're interested in finance, there's like investment banking questions. There's a whole heap of things as well. So I'll definitely say you guys should check that out, and I will drop the link again just for you guys to check out. But yeah, someone also asked as well, which is something that I don't feel like we touched on. They sent it to me privately. They said, what is like the typical day for you as like a data engineer, like, right?
okay.
If you can kind of talk through that. And don't give
I
us
don't think I said that.
cliche, no days are the same. Like, give us a typical day, like.
Well, okay, to be honest, a typical day of a data engineer is you wake up, it has to be 9 or 9:30 stand-up call. I
Mm,
think like that is the very typical morning that you have a stand-up call, you're with on a call with like all the other engineers talking about what you're going to do, because there's no slacking when you're an engineer, none at all. Because you have to explain what you're doing that whole day, explain what you've done the next previous day, and explain what you're working on, and if you need any help or anything like that. Because they want to make sure, because it's not an easy like type of role, they want to make sure that everyone is,
being productive
inclusive
and
and
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and being productive. So usually if you are more senior, then you'll probably have maybe 4 other meetings during the day talking about product risk. So product risk of the product that you're actually trying to engineer in terms of the data aspect. And then we'll talk to the product, the data analysts about the product risk and things like that. You'll mingle with other people who are data analysts, product owners, scrum masters, software engineers as well, software developers, which is very similar to software engineer, and also coding during the day, just all day
Mm.
long. If you need help, you contact your team lead, then you'll come back to coding again. If you get stuck and your internet is out, then you're just there. You're twiddling your thumbs, basically, because it is honestly, all days are not the same. That is very cliche, but the next day could be like, maybe you're not coding, maybe you're just on like a call with your team lead that you're literally shadowing the new project you're on, because new projects require new coding languages to learn.
Mhm.
So if you're on a new project, you need to learn a new coding language. So you're training on a new coding language. For example, next month I'm going to be doing another certification. The month after could be another one because I'm going to be on a new project. So yeah, it's learning, coding, stand-ups, calls, it's all that stuff. So yeah.
Okay then, got you. But basically, long story short, no days are the same. That's
Yeah, no,
it.
and also you do like finish quite late because you don't,
Mm,
like I just said, I did finish today at 6:30,
mm, mm.
6:30, and it's a Friday. So yeah, like you do finish quite late because sometimes when you're on a deadline and the deadline can get very intense. Like you feel the testosterone because I work with just men. So the energy will be crazy.
And then also, I think like with your role, there's a bit added pressure because are you working like with clients, like with the way Capgemini is set up? So you guys are kind of working on client projects, right? So is that
Yeah,
what?
with us, I'm not working with clients, but we do have client contacts, but I work with just engineers. So
Mm.
I just communicate with engineers unless you're more of a senior data engineer or a software engineer, then you'll have more communication with the clients, maybe talk
But
to
the
the
work you're doing, is it for clients basically? Like,
no, it's for
yeah,
clients.
yeah, yeah, got you.
To be honest, because I work with Capgemini, but I work with just HMRC. That is the main client I work with.
Hmm.
So I work with government data. So it's just that client that I work with specifically. But that is the organization I work with. So to talk to them is a bit more
It's
on
a bit,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Very exclusive type
Yeah.
of setup going on. Okay, no, that makes sense. And you kind of mentioned as well that you do a bit of coaching and helping people that really want to get into tech. Could you like tell us like where can people kind of contact you so we can maybe drop it in the chat? And I can just see someone even just went on the website and ordered a CV as we're speaking. So that's good. So we're definitely gonna get all of Deborah's materials on that website as well. But how can people kind of contact you just to, get some coaching and really start making those six-figure jobs, six-figure salaries in tech, man?
Okay, with my coaching, you have to email me because that's the main way. I can drop my email on the chat,
Yes,
but
please. So they can
yeah, with
like, reach you and stuff.
just quickly, just type it before I continue speaking.
Perfect,
So
perfect. So yeah,
yeah,
maybe
usually
talk about your coaching a bit.
usually with my coaching, you just email me, tell me exactly what exactly you want to specifically have help in, because I don't just work with people that want to get into tech. I work with people that want to do their masters. Like recently, I worked with someone that was from Nigeria. They got their masters up in Scotland, so I help them with their masters and stuff like that. Because I myself got into King's College, which I didn't go to, but
Mm.
then so I just help them from that aspect. So whatever you want helping, I usually just help guidance in CVs, application process, cover letter as well, and also just boosting confidence. Because one thing I've noticed with the clients I've worked with is that confidence is such a huge barrier to someone being very experienced but having lack of confidence to them getting the job. Because and someone being not even experienced at all, but them having all the confidence in the world and them getting the job, because confidence is what will actually sell yourself in the right way. You
Hmm.
believe what you have, and even when you're lacking, selling yourself in a way where you have all the everything and then some to the employer. So I just help people with their confidence and just defeat that imposter syndrome, because it's just a thing of it's a mental thing, it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
And I also help with specifically obviously with tech, but because I obviously specialize in data engineering, if you want to get into anything data related, I help a lot of people get into data analyst, data engineering, test as well, and that aspect. But definitely email me if you want to learn more. I do have a program where you can be subscription based or pay a lump sum, because I do put a lot of effort and energy into it because I really enjoy helping people get from one patient to another. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Got you. Someone said, "Do you have a website?" I know you don't have one now, but I mean, with all these coding skills, there, bro, like, come on, man, like,
I
you
do. I made a website for myself actually.
really, is what the website
Yeah,
is.
I do actually have a website, but I don't know. I have a website. It was on my Instagram page, but I took it down because I just had to refresh it and everything. I actually
Okay.
made a website by myself. It's
Oh
crazy.
wow! So really, really putting your money where your mouth, putting your skills where your mouth is. Okay then, but yeah, guys, you've heard, you can drop her an email and stuff if you're really serious about getting into tech. And I'd really advocate for you guys. Like honestly, a lot of the resources on our website as well. Just being able to see an actual CV that's got someone a job in tech, like, that's like a no-brainer. If I was you, I would kind of like, just take advantage of that as well. And just a quick pluggy, beyond education, we recently partnered up with another community called Black Girls in Tech, and they have a series of boot camps that they're going to be launching in January as well. So if you guys are kind of subscribed to our website and stuff, you should have seen the newsletter and information on all of that. So be sure to check that out. And they also partnered up with Cisco to launch a cyber academy with a bunch of free courses on cybersecurity and stuff like that as well. So again, it looks like tech is really the future. A lot
Yeah,
of our
this is
members, I think like 38% of our members are interested in tech. So, we're really trying to source partnerships and like, form partnerships with people that really understand this industry. Me, I'm a finance guy. I'm gonna put my hands up and say I don't really understand this that much.
coming to tech.
Yeah, exactly. I need to. But we're really leveraging our community and leveraging like the professionals that we have, such as Deborah, and partnerships that we have with like Black Girls in Tech to really bring resources and opportunities to you guys. So I'd say honestly, sign up to the website so you can get the drop on that. And yeah, man. With that being said, I hope you guys really enjoyed the webinar, and we'll kind of wrap up then. Deborah, thank you so much for sharing your time with us this evening to just delve into it as well. Really nice, small, intimate group, and I feel like a lot of people really benefited from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well for having me. I enjoyed, sharing my experiences.
No problem, no problem. Well, I leave you guys to it, and yeah, man, everyone have a good weekend.